Storm Goretti turns power lines to spaghetti. There's a big change in the forecast after Goretti, and what happened to us over the Christmas and New Year period.
Hello and welcome to Square Raindrop. I'm Jo Wheeler.
And I'm Steph Galter.
Now, I think we'll come back to the festive season very shortly. Let's talk about this storm because, of course, it brought snow scenes across the country that would have been magical over the festive season, but just a pain in the backside when everybody's back at work and at school, or not at school.
Do you know what? I think a lot of people are quite disappointed.
I think they are.
Because they were promised quite widespread snow of like 10 to 15 centimetres and in some locations 20 to 30. You know, it's a lot of snow. And what did they get in the morning, Jo, when they opened their curtains?
Well, for most people, not a great deal. But for those travelling from Birmingham and East Midlands Airport, they got cancelled flights.
Yes, so while it was coming down, it was really bad and visibility on the roads was terrible, whatever. But it didn't quite stay, did it?
No, it didn't. But quite apart from the snow, of course, Cornwall virtually gained its independence. It nearly floated away, or should I say it was blown away. Recorded winds of 99 miles per hour, but several other stations said more than that, over 100 miles per hour.
Yeah, one place reported 123 mile an hour gust, which is incredibly strong. And normally that would have had to happen during a sting jet. So it's so strong that it would really indicate that something came. So sting jets are these upper air features that sort of dip down towards the ground. They only happen in really intense storms. So because this was a weather bomb or explosive cyclogenesis, that's why we could possibly have had a sting jet. And they were saying it was increasingly likely. And then it does look like we did see a sting jet. So, yeah, very, very powerful. And I've seen pictures of all sorts of things in Cornwall today that should be upright and are currently scattered.
Steffi, so incredibly clever. But you had to look on a map to see where Padstow was.
No idea. Well, I did live in the Middle East for 13 years. Give me half a chance. Bet you can pick out Al Wakra. Anyway, moving on. A random fact for you.
But Padstow's been there a long time as well.
So's Al Wakra. Now, let's move on. Yes, greenhouses. So here's my random fact that you might or might not have known, Jo. When you get a greenhouse and there's a really strong wind and a pane of glass comes out, where does the pane of glass go?
Into next door's garden.
So you expect it to pop out or pop into the greenhouse? Would it be blown into the greenhouse or, you know, what do you think will happen to the pane of glass?
It's not exactly one of those things that kept me awake at night wondering what will happen. But at a rough guess, I'm going to say inside the greenhouse.
Ha! No. Bernoulli, his theory says not. Because if you think about aeroplanes and the shape of their wings, that's where most of us have heard about the Bernoulli theory principle. The winds go under the wing quite slowly compared to over the wing because it's a further distance. So that's what gives it lift, because high speed is low pressure. So with a greenhouse, if you get winds howling past really quickly, low pressure. So the panes of glass of a greenhouse will pop out, not get blown in. And that sort of is against what you might at first think.
It is. I do think for the residents of Cornwall who suffered these strong winds last night, whether the panes of glass on their greenhouse pop in or pop out was the least of their worries.
Well, the greenhouse I saw was in very many pieces, and I did mention it on Threads, and I probably will get a short, sharp answer. Oops.
And looking at this greenhouse that had been obliterated, were the panes of glass inside, outside, or pretty much everywhere?
Every which way.
So is it just the first pane of glass that goes outward and then the rest of them it's a free-for-all?
Maybe it's like a house of cards. The whole thing just collapses at that point. Anyway, I thought that was quite interesting.
Well, yes, it was fascinating, Tony. Absolutely fascinating. So things are looking a little bit milder for the time being, and it seems like Christmas and the New Year are a very long way behind us. Did you have a good time?
Yes, we did. We went on a little trip around. We went Peterborough. We went on a little trip around. We went to Peterborough and then to the west of the Midlands, and then we dropped in to see another Sky weather presenter, also called Jo. Can never have enough Joes. And then back south. So we did a little tour, and we didn't see more than this amount of snow. But my little girl, who's 8, actually she's 9 now, she scraped up as much snow as she could and she made this ginormous snowball. I don't know how she did it. Perseverance.
Absolutely. Well, mine was actually quite interesting because I was on standby to head off to York because my eldest daughter was expecting her second child. So I got no great celebrations planned, as my youngest daughter found out when she came home on the 23rd and I hadn't got a tree and I hadn't got a turkey. Well, it got very quiet around here because she wasn't speaking to me until she went upstairs and she said, "For how long have we had an extra cat?" And I said, I didn't know we had an extra cat. Right? And I don't know how this cat got in and for how long I've been harbouring this fugitive cat. Right? But that was cat number 5. The thing is, it looks very like one of the others. So it's understandable that unless I saw the 2 of them together, that I wouldn't actually notice there was an extra cat. Anyway, so then she was talking to me again, but then she wasn't because the heating was broken and I hadn't noticed. So Christmas was a little bit quiet around my house.
Gosh.
We did cook a very nice meal together. And then post-Christmas, my dryer's broken and my dryer's blown up and my carpet washer's blown up.
But
what
you
a
have
shame I can't
noticed
go
them.
back and... Sorry?
You have noticed them at least, unlike the
Oh, yeah,
heater.
of course I have. They're machines. Of course I've noticed.
So there was this great little post on some social media or other. I get confused. There's so many of them nowadays. So that makes me sound like I'm 90. Anyway, and it said, this man said, "I lost my cat. My cat went outside and he didn't come back. And I was so sad. And then after 2 weeks, I was walking around a slightly different part of town and I found my cat. So I brought him home and I was so pleased. The next day, my cat arrived home. So now I have 2.
Actually, that brings to mind. My mother once said to me that there was a local cat that was missing. And I happened to be in that part of the neighbourhood and I saw the cat and I thought, "Oh, look, I found the cat. What wonderful news." So I picked the cat up and I put it in the car and I was driving back and I phoned Mummy and I said, "I found the cat." And she goes, "What do you mean you found the cat?" And I said, "I found the cat." And so the original cat had also turned up. So now I've abducted a cat. But the worst thing is, at that point, you can't go and put it out of the car back where you found it because that looks like you're dumping a cat. Right? So it's a lose-lose situation. There's nothing you can do.
So what did you do? You can't, I mean, you have to do something with the cat.
Well, I took it back and I parked up somewhere nice and dark and I let the cat out of the car. Thought I got away with it, but some woman came to the door and she goes, my cat's back." And I said, "Yes, I'm sorry, I just found it out here." And she goes, "Oh, little Goretti."
There's no way that cat was called Goretti.
You're absolutely right.
Do you know that the actual storm, though, did have the shape of a G? And I think that's how we should name storms in future. We should look at them after the event and look at the shape of it and go, "That's a G. It's going to be called something beginning with G."
That would mean that we post-naming everything.
Yeah, okay, there's a flaw to my plan.